Doing great, bro. It's a good Monday, good day today.
Great day today.
Yeah, a little up and down, but we've been here, We're working.
It's life.
That's how it is. All right, brother. What the importance of who you surround yourself with?
Oof. I mean, that's. I feel like these conversations are just givens. No, I don't know if that's. It's something that everyone already, I think, knows.
Do they?
I think so. I think there's a. I think what, basically, it's super important who you surround yourself with, right? That's why I feel like a lot of these sayings, as cliche or like as much as you hear them, they exist because there's a level of truth to it. And I have always said that, but I think it's just surrounding, like when you're around people who are content or I guess satisfied with where they're at, there's no room for growth. But it's the same thing when we talk about competing, when we talk about what is that saying? Birds of a feather flock together, right? It's that, right? And you'll notice that if you just analyze the people in your life and who they hang out with, you'll come to realize that you are the average of the five people. It's not about who you necessarily like spend time with, but I think it's who you I guess look up to.
Your mentors?
I heard this saying, but I mean, in essence, it's true, right? I know that like my time in the Marine Corps, I was around a lot of people who lived that like Marine Corps, like if you can insert an image, you can kind of see what it's like. But you'll notice that we all had very similar mentalities, even not necessarily similar mentalities, but we behaved a certain way. And for the most part, I guess we operated very similarly, right? And it's the same thing when you surround yourself with, how do I put it in like do you get what I'm trying to say though? Like, you don't feel the need to do more or any less because these people are doing the same thing, right? And so when you put yourself in I feel like when I grew the most is when I was in some level of discomfort where things were new to me, or I had to try something completely new that I didn't or I have never done. But
It's a tough one. I mean, we could grow up with friends all our life, but at what point do we realize that they're not benefiting or they're not framing into the future that we're
so
trying
this is
to
my
be
thing,
part
right?
of?
The reason why I'm so like, how do I explain it in a way that doesn't say like, that doesn't mean kick out your friends that don't serve you, like, or that benefit you. That's the complete wrong way to see it. But what I'm getting at is like, if you want A or you want B or whatever it is, but the people you're around are happy with where they're at right now, then you're going to be, there's conflict, right? But like, I still have friends that don't have the, like, I guess the aspirations that I particularly like, that I want, or that I have, but that doesn't mean they're not my friend, right? And I think what ends up happening is you end up getting closer or spending more time or associating with people that have common ideas or goals. And that's the same reason why you see little cliques in high school and so on. And it's because of that, because you gravitate towards what's familiar, I think, right? But that saying, like, who you're surrounded by, it's important, because if you're talking about who you're surrounded by from a level of growth, then of course it's important, right? But you also have people who are happy with where they're at. They have the same group of friends, and I'm fortunate enough to have the same friends since I was super young. But it just so happened that we had very similar goals or visions as we grew, right? But I want to preface, like, that doesn't mean kick out friends that don't benefit you. I think that's the wrong way to even view friendship or relationships as a whole. But I think the question you were trying to ask is from like a growth perspective. How important is who you're surrounded by, right? And it's super important because they'll either push you to be better, right? Or they'll compete with you. So you're both growing, but if you have the group of friends who, again, we want to talk about the other side of the coin, who's wasting their day or wasting their month or year, they're getting into trouble or doing no good, then those are people you probably shouldn't be around, right? So I think that's what you were trying to get at, but
In a sense, for sure.
yeah.
I mean, it goes beyond friendships. It could be business. It could be relationships. It could be family members.
Yeah.
You know, but definitely, I think the perspective that I was observing was growth. You know, yeah, I feel like maybe friends are there for a reason.
Yeah.
You know, they're there since a young age. Maybe even came into your life a little older. But I think a good friend is gonna want to motivate you regardless. Correct?
Yes. I think a good friend is there to lift you, right? And that doesn't necessarily mean, like, you can look at it in any aspect, but the way that I view friendship is like, when I'm not around, this is the way I see it. Like with my friends, if they're not around, I try to uplift in some way, shape, or form with whoever I'm speaking to, or maybe if whatever I said can give them an opportunity somewhere else, or can help them, like, well, hey, he said good things about him, so, we want him a part of this, or we want him part of that, right? And I think more so right now is just the way that I view friendship. I guess I treat it like, how would I want my friends to talk about me in any room? And it's not always like he's the best human being. Like I always say, like, I take pride in the fact that I'm not chill. I'm not, but I do hope that when there is an opportunity, they speak of me where I can grow too. You get me?
I do. I hear you loud and clear. Well, I think that was a good way to start off the conversation. You know, the reason why I asked that was because thinking about the future, correct? I'm thinking about not now, but 5, 10, 15 years from now, right?
Right.
Before you even started this journey of Paxton Energy, before you started this journey of embracing the new you, right? Was there any sense of visualization? Was there any sense of manifestation? And did that take place with friends? Did that take place by yourself as an individual, or how did that come to be?
So I think I want to preface like this. Like a couple of days ago, you asked me about New Year's resolutions, and I didn't have a clear answer for you. And the more I kept thinking about it. Like, why don't I have a New Year's resolution or like a goal for this year? And I've come to realize that what I'm trying to do can't be accomplished in a year. So like, I still have leftover stuff that I still need to do from 2021, 2022. And if you ask, like, my mindset has always been the same in this growth, especially with a company. It's always been, okay, well, let's tackle it this at a time. Let's work at it and just see progress, right? But I've come to realize, yes, my goals you can't accomplish them within 365 days. And I'm not limiting myself. I'm just trying to explain, like, I always say this: people underestimate what they can do in 10 years, but overestimate what they can do in 1 year. Right. Which, again, we talked about it, but I've come to realize I have the same goal as last year. And that's the reason why I don't have an answer of what are you going to do different this year. Right. And I know this isn't the question you asked, but it was something that I thought about when you talked about goals and stuff like that. But yeah, if you notice this year, I wasn't like, this is my year to do this. This is my year to do that. Really, nothing's changed. I didn't treat the new year like something was any different. It was just the overflow of what work we had left to do and the work that we still have to do, which will get us to long term. Right. But going back on like manifesting visions and so on, I think if I look back, like I've shared this with a lot of the guys here, but if you look at my time where I felt alone and I was around a lot of people, this is the time where I was in Japan, and I was around good friends. I was around a lot of people, but it's when I felt very alone or stuck, right? And I think that was where, you'll hear people say, like, this is when I decided to make a change and so on. I knew I wanted to make a change before that point, but it was during those times. It was the holiday season, right, where I missed people at home, or I missed my mom or whoever it was, or my brother. And that time in like almost solitude which I put myself in. I had friends around me, but it was during that time where I was like, this is what I want in my life. And if you see like screenshots that I've had of the dates of when I took these screenshots and so on, yes, it does help. And it's almost, I want to argue like it's crucial to growth, right? But I think, you know, some people probably want to share these visions and whatnot or goals with friends. I found it to be more valuable to me when I do it by myself, when I think about it by myself, when I'm in complete silence or just in a room by myself, right?
In that solitude, you were able to find those ideas, that vision.
Yeah.
That
So like think about it right now, right? So I want you to do this exercise with me. I want you to think about what you want your life to look like in the next 5 years. Okay, so you're not seeing this, but why are your eyes closed?
Right.
No, I'm asking you, why do you think that is?
I think I have to put myself in a different state.
Because you're shutting out vision right now. You're trying to shut out everything. You're trying to not hear anything either while you're thinking about it. Do you get what I'm saying?
I do.
So like people do this where I say, imagine this, and they close their eyes because they're trying to shut out every external stimulus and just think about that. So for me, it's like, well, I don't need the people around me. You know, it's fun to talk about goals and stuff, but when you're really dedicated to this growth, it's that, like, when you cut out all the noise is when it really, I think, makes an impact. Like, it's like when you pray, you don't pray with your eyes open. I'm assuming.
That's true.
You get me?
Yeah.
So it does help when you cut out all distraction, which is another form of focus.
Yeah, you're right.
Yeah.
Wow. So when you were visualizing, when you were manifesting, how did this take place? What did those visions, what are those?
Well, for me in the very beginning, it was cars. It was cars. And so I would just think about, like, when I opened the door, what does that feel like? Like what does that feel like? What is the door chime? Bing, bing, or whatever, right? I would think about, like, damn, this steering wheel feels nice. Or I can picture, like, that new car smell, right?
For me, it's always the smell.
Yeah, it's all of it though. Like, you're trying to, like, with all your senses, right? And I'm picturing, like, damn, this is a nicely wrapped Alcantara steering wheel. This is a crazy, this gauge cluster looks great. Like, I would just think about things like that, and I would just think about, like, what it felt like to leave the car, like pull up somewhere and exit the car, or think about what the exhaust sounds like. Just a whole bunch of crap. That it's not crap, but, like, the way that I thought about it at that point was, like, I wanted it so bad. And if you look at some of the stuff that I wanted to purchase, like, you'll see that one by one I took them.
So your manifestations began with cars, in a sense.
Yes, obviously, like, as a young kid, cars were, like, that's what was important. It's still, I love cars, but it was like one of those things where it's like, dude, it'd be so cool to, like, you know, go on a drive or go on a date or do all this other stuff where it's like, you know,
in a nice car.
Yeah.
And then the rest followed.
Yeah, and then the rest followed. Then it became like, well, what does it feel like when I buy my first house, or when I do this, or when I do whatever it is, like, whatever goal you're trying to set. You know, you want to think about it in the sense of, like, there's a quote, I don't remember the exact quote, but it's like, when you dream it so hard and like, this is the reality. Some people lie so hard or so much that they believe their lies. Have you ever heard that?
I have.
And so, you know, you've caught some people, like, BSing you, and they're like, and you know, you're like, that didn't happen, but they believe that it happened, right?
After telling the story quite a few times,
they believe it, right? Well, the same can be true for the inverse. It can be true for goal setting. I dreamt it so much that it came to exist. Was just like that lie, it came to be reality for them, right? And so it was things like that. Like, what does it feel like to gift my mom X amount of money, or to take care of this, or to say, like, hey, you don't gotta worry about nothing no more, or whatever that, like, how did you present that to her? How did, like, all of that came into play? And for me, in the very beginning, cars. Like, I think about it now. Like, there's a car behind me. There's a car up there. Like, there's my wallpaper. Like, that's not to say materialistic things are what is the most important facet of life. But it was, for me, like, that's what I want.
It was a driving point.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, the reason why I asked about your New Year's resolution and stuff like that was because, yes, it's a new year, and yes, you still have goals from the previous year.
Mm-hmm.
But for example, Tiger Woods, he's played how many X amount of games or X amount of, I don't know, what do you call them? Games? What do you call them?
Matches.
Matches.
Yeah.
He's played X amount of matches, right? But every time he still plays a match, he even visualizes the match. He visualizes every hole. He visualizes how he's gonna swing, what putt or what iron he's gonna use. So, although this is a new year for you, do you ever like get those feelings? Do you ever, put yourself in that mind state that things are almost the same, but they're all constantly changing?
Yes. So I want to explain like that. I think it's a little bit different with sports per se, because you know what's about to happen for the next 18 holes, or like the terrain. Like, if you ask me about any of the golf courses I play at, I'll tell you like hole 7, it's this par 3 or whatever it is. I'll tell you like, hey, it's the one that goes up, down. Like, I can envision that. But with business, it's a little bit different, because it's like, right now, but before we started, hey, this happened. I can't envision. I can't even like prepare for that. So when this happens, then what? Okay, so now this is the point where I have to be like, okay, well, if we go this direction, this is what can happen. If we go this direction, this is what can happen. And what the conversation that I just had with Ryan was, hey, you hold enough power to just sit there and make decisions, and then let's come to some solution at that point. So it doesn't have to come to my direction where I have to solve a problem. And they've been pretty good about it, right? Where it's like, I try to, I guess, enable some level of decision making where I don't have to be directly involved. And so they'll know I made a decision and it worked out. Build confidence. If it didn't work, there's a lesson learned. Let's go.
You got to stack those wins, and that's the only way you get that confidence.
Yeah.
And as well as the losses, like today, for example, that was a tough topic.
Yeah.
Right before we started this podcast, that was definitely one of those things where like, all right, well, let's do it. Let's figure it out. There's no other option really.
Yeah.
So that leads me to add on, right, to this idea. Vision boards. Mm-hmm. Did you create one early on?
For this year, no. For 2024, I did.
Okay.
Right? I think it's naive to say like without a vision board you'll fail, but I already know what I want, right? And the vision board, I think, is a clear visual of the things that you're looking for in life, right? And so when you talk about like, hey, this guy, like my brother is a great example where he a couple years ago had a watch on that vision board, and then he ended up getting that exact watch. And then he used to say like, I used to brush my teeth and think like, damn, I got it, right? Which is a very good driving factor if you're reminded by it every day, which is why like even in here you'll see that I have my own visions of like, this is what I want and so on and so forth. But it's a great tool. Yes, I do believe it. But I think for most people, it's decoration. It's I want to look cool, because how cool is it to have a $500,000 watch or a $40 million property? Yeah, but then when we look at it, right, when we talk about it, I'm like, damn, $320,000 for a mortgage
a month.
Well, people are doing it, so I have to figure it out, right? But then there comes into that factor of okay, and so on. So what I've come to realize is most people, and again, if this is you, this isn't a shot at you. This is for you to kind of, I guess, reflect, right? Are your goals just dreams, or are they something that you're trying to actually pursue? Right. Wow. That's something that I'll see with a lot of people. Hey, like I used to make fun of Ryan. I want a GT3 RS. I want a GT3 RS. Well, you work like a Ford. And again, Daniel has a Ford, but I have a picture of Ryan. Ryan's contact is a Ford Pinto, which is a old, like, Google it, you'll see how ugly it is, and I think it was a recalled vehicle, like it was complete trash. But like that came into play. Like, how do you have like I've said this, you have this goal of like, I want a Ferrari, but you work like a Corolla. You get what I'm saying?
I do.
And so it's that same thing even with vision boards. There's another saying: you can't have a $1 million goal with a minimum wage work ethic. Like, there's a bunch of sayings like that because it's true, and they exist because too many people are following within that same realm of, here's the goal I want, it looks cool, but I'm happy here. Right?
Wow. And
then most people, they don't live great lives because they're okay living good lives. Right? And so if you talk about anyone's vision board, I think it's the percentage of it. I don't know the statistic, but I'm sure the percentage of people that put on their vision board like a random car that you see everywhere, or like just a regular house. Do you see that? Have you ever seen a vision board like that with a regular house here? It's always been some crazy, no?
Yeah, some crazy outlandish stuff.
Yeah, but that's what it is. Like, they have big goals, but then when they come to realize how much it is, or how much effort it takes, or how much investment or sacrifice it takes, like, okay, well, now I'm shaken.
I think also you had mentioned, how are you going to put all these things on the board, but you don't know the prices of these things and what it's going to take?
Yeah, and I think that's the reason why I say that is so I can give these guys a piece of like, well, this is what it's going to cost you. Are you willing to pay that? And it's not always about money, but are you willing to pay that time? Or put in X amount of months or years of just nothing. Does that make sense? And I see, like, when people have these goals of, I want to make X amount of money, or I want to purchase this big house, or whatever the case is, they don't know what that entails, right? So I do this exercise with them to just give them an idea of, well, this is what ends up happening. They say, hey, I want to make $1 million. Okay. And then on their goal, their vision board or whatnot, that cost of living is like $1 million a month, some crazy. And I'm like, well, you understand, like, these two don't correlate. So either one, you got to pump up your work, you get what I'm saying? And this isn't, again, like, I want to preface, like, I want to make this very clear. This isn't to shut down goals. This is so you have a clear cut picture of, this is what it's going to cost you. Are you willing to pay for it? Cool. Let's get to work. It's like that.
Yeah, of course. I mean, you could dream up into the moon. It's just whether or not you're gonna work for it. I think you had told me one time, dreams or goals are nothing without action, or something like that, right? You had mentioned something around that.
I mean, you'll hear me say a lot of things here, especially, but the vision board is a great example. Everybody has goals. Every single person has or if not many goals. And then what ends up happening is we're at the point in time right now of the new year where everybody's starting to go back to their shit. And then you'll see, well, I don't know if it's worth it. Or one day won't hurt. Right? And so they'll say, like, well, I was consistent for 13 days. One day won't hurt. And then it'll turn into, well, I already slacked off this day, another day won't hurt, or whatever the case is. But it's that relentless pursuit of, I'm going to do it every day. Like, just those habits that you have to I say, I have like a mixed relationship with the word try, right? Because younger me would have been like, try, you're going to do it. Right? But trying is the first step, right? But the reason why I have this relationship with that word is because some people, like, try implies some level of failure. I'll try it out, right? But for me, it's like, dude, give it all you got. Give it all you got. Like, this is the only thing you got, and watch how it turns out.
Yeah.
Right?
And I think that leads me to talk about the plan B. The plan B, not method, but the mentality of having a plan B.
Yeah.
What do you think about that?
Where we're at right now was nowhere near what I envisioned early on about this is how we're going to take the company. We're going to do this, we're going to do that. Like where we're at is not any part of a plan, but it worked out because I just made adjustments, right? And so when he talks about plan B, this is the notion or idea of, well, if this doesn't work, I can do this. And that's not what, and that's a great mentality to have in terms of like, well, I'm going to go this direction, and if that campaign or this whatever fails, we'll go this direction. What most people do is they say, well, I'm going to try to start a clothing brand. But if that doesn't work, I can be an accountant. Or if that doesn't work, I'm going to go open this or open that. Like those are the plan Bs that I'm talking about. In business, there's always going to be some level of, okay, well, that's the wrong decision. We have to make it, which is, right now is a great example. We made a decision where we're going to lose some money on. Okay, let's go. You get me? That's not going to be my, we're too deep into it now where that won't even affect us to, like, especially with what we've gone through, but that's not a decision where it's like, okay, well, now I have to change ship or jump ship. Where I think if less people had the mentality of, if this field doesn't work, I can go into this field. But if you had the mentality of, I'm going to do everything I can in this industry or whatever it is you're doing, whether that be baking cakes or selling solar or whatever it is you're doing, it's if this didn't work, I can adjust. Right?
It's just having about adjustments. It's adjustments. It's still the same goal, but you're just adjusting.
You're adapting.
Yeah. Of course.
And you're going to always have to adapt. There's going to be new policies in place. Market's going to change and there's things changing always. Right. And so this notion of I'm going to only have this, you know, people draw out this plan of like, this is how I want things to look. But in reality, you're going to have setbacks. You're going to make decisions that are not, that are going to take you aback. But at that point, it isn't like, okay, well, now I'm going to go start a tanning salon. Hey, how do I fix this? Right.
It's sticking to the course. It's sticking to the course and keeping going. Yep. Yeah. Like it's not necessarily a plan B to face an adversity and adjust, but it is a plan B when your first initial goal was, I'm going to do this, for instance, and now you're in a complete different field doing something that you didn't even talk about.
It's micro plan B. It's micro plan B. That means within it, you're making a small adjustment of, okay, well, this route didn't work. Here's the next plan, right? Hey, we're going to go this direction, guys. That didn't work. Well, here's the next plan. That's a plan B, or right, that micro adjustment or whatever the case is. But people take it to the macro where it's like, all right, well, photography didn't work for me. So now I'm a doctor, or I'm going to try to be a doctor. And then damn well, that's hard. That didn't work. So you know what? I think I'm going to do this instead. Right? That's not plan B's or C's. That's you just quitting. That's that plan B mentality. I think I'm trying to play both sides because you have, like, I'm not naive enough to think, well, my only plan made it through. Like, I had to make different decision out of the first decision that I made. But again, going back, it's because people, they take plan B a little too far.
They completely reroute their direction.
Yeah. Well, that's what I'm saying is like, well, we're going to go right. Okay. And I've come to realize, well, we should have gone left. That's fine. You make that adjustment. That's a complete different direction. That's 180 degree in different direction. But the plan B that I'm talking about, where you need to like get like that mindset out almost, is exert everything you have. So me going from right to left isn't exerting all my resources or my efforts, but this is what it comes down to. Like, you have people who start wanting to be a doctor, and then it gets too hard. Maybe the doctor is not a good idea, but like, you have some guys who decide this is not it because I don't want it. Change course. That's not a plan B. That's you understanding I have to make a decision. But it's this. Well, photography is too hard, or I'm not getting any clients. I barely, whatever the case is, and I'm sure you've seen a lot of it in your time, but it's like, well, this didn't work. So what am I doing now? Well, I'm gonna work. I'm gonna sell this instead, or I'm gonna do this instead, and whatever the case is. They change directions in its entirety. When you're missing out on, if you just stuck it through, what could happen, right?
Mm-hmm. And you need to be conscious about those decisions too. You need to be really in the zone, if that makes sense, you know, about those conscious decisions that this was your goal, you committed, you invested, so why back out?
Yeah, it's the same thing. Like it's you quit once, you'll quit again, and you'll quit again. We talked about it before about the running, right? If you quit once, that's you telling your body this is my pain or tolerance threshold. Let's adjust. So every time you run into some level of adversity or hardship or any trial that you enter, it's like, okay, well, this doesn't work. When I think you have to buy into the fact that this is almost fact. There's going to be trials and tribulations. There's going to be challenges or obstacles along the way. And you knowing that that's going to come or that's going to happen, you're more suited or better off in growth when you know that that's going to happen. When I know, like, I'm going to start, there's going to be shit that I have to, that's going to come my way. And understanding that it's not you dealt with it once and it's now you don't deal with it. It's understanding there's going to be things that come in different avenues of, well, this hit me, that hit me, this hit me. And the more you can build that, you callous your mind, you callous the body and so on. Okay, well, come on, next one.
Mm-hmm. You know, that kind of leads me to this topic as well. I mean, we're just going back to back on these today. I think it's just rolling into it, but it's just being conscious. And I think part of that is the success consciousness, is that having that success mentality within your conscious thinking on a day-to-day basis. Because not every day is going to be a sweet day.
Right.
Not every day is going to be easy. Like today was hard to get up for me. It was hard. Yeah. I was 4 minutes late. Yeah. And as soon as I got to the gym, I had to beat my butt behind a little bit more, but it's about that. It's being conscious of the decisions you're making, still staying in line with the purpose and the goals that you've set and committing to those ideas,
Yeah.
But let's talk about that idea, the success consciousness.
I think that that's you keeping that success in mind always. And so what I guess the way that I can explain that is like, when some of you guys have had older or had younger siblings, right? You and me, we've had younger siblings were we not conscious of the decisions that we made to not impact the younger sibling? You can't do that because it's going to make you look bad or he's going to follow in your footsteps. Okay. That means you're conscious to some, you're conscious about that footprint you're leaving to your younger sibling. Now, the same applies with success. The more you're thinking about it, okay, the more you're some of you obsess over this guy or girl, like, oh man, like I just want that text back, or I just want this toy, or kids, I want this toy and I'll be happy, or that's all they think about. Well, if success, quote unquote success, is all you thought about, how much more likely are you to attract that? What I know, if I'm so conscious of I can't make, I can't do anything that'll influence my younger sibling in a bad way, then I'll stay away from it, right? Mm-hmm. But the success conscious is, like, for me, it's knowing, like, my time's coming, right? And I say my time's coming because I still feel so far from where I'm at, right? But in my head, there's no doubt that I'm like, okay, well, that's just a couple years out. That's just the way I see it, right?
And it goes to the opposite too. The more negatively you think, the more negative things you attract.
Yeah. And that, again, we talk. It's like it's crazy that. Here's a great example. They say that when you're driving and your car breaks loose, where you're looking is where the car is going to end up. Okay, it's the same thing with horses. Again, I've ridden horses one time. I was a baby. Okay, so I have no idea how to Yellowstone this, but they say that when you're riding a horse and you're off like a cliff or something, or like in some sketchy spot, if you're looking at the fall, the horse is going to fall. But if you just stay on the path, the horse will follow. and I'll stay on this path. So it's the same notion. If you think this, if you're only concerned about, well, bad things, well, you don't be surprised when only bad things happen to you. And then you're going to sit there and say, what? I told you it was going to happen. So you're just solidifying, well, only bad things happen.
You manifested that.
Right? When I know, well, like, hey, you know what? Good things happen. Good things happen. And like yesterday, I was speeding. I wasn't speeding crazy. Like I was going over the speed limit. I was driving home from Newport. You know that road when you leave Pelican and it's that Newport coast where you're leaving up? There's not a lot of traffic. It's dark. So I was probably going like 60 miles an hour in a 45 or whatever it is. Okay? I'm like, oh, crap. I see a cop. I see the lights hit it. Like I see the lights, everything. He's pointed like this. I'm going this way. Like, and in my head, I'm like, I don't think I'm going to get pulled over. I hope not. I don't think so. You know, he just high beams me, telling me to slow down. I'm like, oh, crap. And my girl's like, you're lucky. I'm like, well, I just think good things. Like, I don't know. Like, it didn't come to me as a surprise that I didn't get pulled over, which might be a bad way to think in terms of speeding. But it's like when good things happen, I'm not like, oh, my God, I didn't expect that. I expected it. I expected to win. You get me?
I do. Keeping that positive affirmation in your mind constantly is
it's especially hard, obviously, when shit's not going right? But I think that I talk about this to the guys here, where I think people are driven by two main motives. Okay, it's the feeling of holy crap, I accomplished it, or failure. So fear, happiness or fear is how I like to break it down. Some people are so driven on, well, if I accomplish this, I'm going to get this reward. Right? And then on the other side, you have guys who think, and this is me, I do both, but I gravitate more towards this side of fear. Well, if I don't do this, here are the repercussions. Right? And I've learned to balance the two that drives me, but I've come to realize, like, as I grew or developed into who I am right now, I did things because I was scared if I didn't do them, things would happen. Right? And so that I realized, I'm saying this because we talk about like success consciousness, but a big part of my drive was, if I don't do it, I'm going to miss this opportunity, or I'm going to, like, if I don't wake up on time, I'm going to get my ass chewed, or I'm going to miss this, or this is what's going to happen, and so on. So I think you can have, if you have that mentality of, well, you don't have a positive attitude, I would try to leverage it in some manner that can help you progress or make progress. And that means if you're one, I'm assuming a lot of people are like this, where they think they don't have that positive attitude, right? But then you also come to think like, well, if you don't snap out of it, this is what's going to happen, and you're not going to achieve that goal. And so I use that as like a leverage, where if I don't do this, I'm not going to get what I'm looking for. And that allowed me to make a quick shift. Okay, time to think this way now.
But that's being conscious. That's being conscious about your emotions and the decisions you're making based off of those feelings, you know? You talked about what you constantly think about is what you're setting yourself up to receive. You know, that's just the same preference of, if you're thinking negative thoughts, negative things will start attracting to you.
Right.
You know, there's a thing, you know, I'm not too sure if, like, you know, you've ever heard about this idea or whatever, but like a lot of spiritual people or whatever, right? These type of people, they talk about it. They talk about how these affirmations and these things like that, but it's more than just an affirmation. Mm-hmm. It's almost like a way of living. What use is it if you look at yourself in the mirror and say, I'm gonna be successful, but you're not doing anything about it? Yeah. Or I'm gonna be happy, but you're constantly mad about things in the world. Yeah. You know, it's being conscious about everyday decisions. Ed Milet talked about how he wrote down 5 feelings that he wants to constantly feel. Uh-huh. If you had 5 feelings that you'd constantly want to feel, what would be those 5 feelings you'd want to be feeling throughout your life? Right. And he talked about, like, one of them for me was happiness. One of them was, he talked about how one of them was aggressiveness. Mm. But his aggressiveness is more in the form of attacking his goals.
Yeah.
You know, so it's constantly being conscious about these emotions that you want to, how do you say, foster within you, you
Right.
know? And it's a hard switch to keep. It's a hard thing to constantly be thinking about it. But once you're conscious about these decisions, you're not going to let somebody ruin your day.
Yeah.
You know, you're not going to let a random person come into your life and tell you some BS about something or whatever, and that ruin your whole day. You're just going to kind of laugh about it and brush it off, you know?
Yeah, no, I agree. I think to go back on like the affirmation stuff, every time I say this, I'm not trying to sound like a hater, or if you take it however the hell you want, right? But my thing has always been, you don't build confidence saying I am. You can look at yourself in the mirror and say, I am a billionaire, I have a six-pack, I'm healthy, I'm this, and you know for a damn fact you're not, right? And this isn't to take away from the power of what you can achieve with that mentality, okay? But again, I say this because too many people do this, and I'm tired of it, where they think if you write down on a notebook, I am this, I am that, I am this, or you say to yourself in the mirror over and over and over, but you're not doing shit to follow up on it, you're none of those things, right? And I always say that confidence isn't built from you saying I am this. It comes from you doing what you said you were going to do, and you did it. Period. There is no, you can have a notebook for the last 10 years saying I am this, I am that. But if you did not do anything to make that become some level of reality, you're probably the same damn person. Right? And we call these, there's a term for it with like the business seminar guys, right? They call them success zombies. Right? There's a name for it, where they say that it's with these guys that have like a lot of the seminars and so on, where they'll go to every single seminar year after year after year, but they're not doing shit about it. So they end up going next year to the same seminar, chasing that feeling of like, oh, I did it. Like, this feels great. I know exactly what to do, right? Which is the same reason why you'll have some guys talk to me. Hey, I needed that. Thank you so much. Right back to bullshit.
I think these I am things are these how do you say, manifestations, or I don't know what to even call them, right?
It is a form of manifestation. You are manifesting it, but again, it's coming down to the same thing. If you don't act on it, or you don't make the decision to, if you don't put in the work, it's just like.
In my opinion, honestly, I think they're reminders. If anything, they're supposed to be reminders, because what are words without actions?
Yeah, exactly. It's the same thing. Like you hit it on the dot there. I can, you know, some of you guys have parents who sit there and want to talk about, hey, I love you, or whatever the case is, but maybe you don't feel it. What do you feel more, their action or what their words are? And I'm not saying because they didn't buy you something, or like I'm talking about for the younger crowd, right? Or because they didn't do something for you, but it's more so like some of you guys have been in relationships like that, where they say one thing but they act like another way. Which do you feel more? So it's the same thing. You can talk about the manifestation of this is what I'm saying to myself, or this is, and again, it is a reminder, or it should be used as a reminder of this is what your potential is, right? Goggins has a I know Ed Milet talks about it, but I heard Goggins say this on one of the seminars. He said that success or hell looks like this. You get to the pearly gates, right? And God's holding a little clipboard. Okay, he said this is how he imagines it. He's holding a clipboard and saying, Chris, 4% body fat helped 2 billion plus families or people. You helped create this fund, you did this, and there's a list of all your accomplishments of what your potential was. And then you're looking at yourself like, who the hell is this guy?
Wow.
You get me? And so he explains his version of hell like that. He says, when I get to that screening, I want God to look at me and say, damn, this was what I thought or what I saw in you, and you passed it. But he said the people that are going to sit there like, oh, well, this is what you were capable of, and look at you right now. You didn't touch any of this. Is what's going to happen, right? And so that when I heard that, it served as a reminder of there's potential you don't know about, and the more you chip at it, the more you hack at it, you'll start unlocking one at a time, and then at the end of the time your life comes to that ending point, you'll be like, well, shit, I did something meaningful, right? Because think about it, like, how would you feel if that moment happens, right? I'm not saying whatever, let's just say it does happen, right? Chris, you started a charity that serves $4 trillion of, help to all these companies, and then you end up how you are right now. Wouldn't you feel like a piece of shit?
Yeah.
You get me?
Mm-hmm.
So it's knowing, like, okay, well, that's the hard part of life, is like you don't, there is no guarantee of this is what you're meant for. You can only believe it and work for it. But there is no, hey, at this point, this is what your future looks like. It only looks like that when you put in the work.
And I think that's the most important key aspect of manifestation and visualization is the work.
Yeah.
Because what good is a dream without the work?
They're both important, and I think being able to create this vision and work towards this vision and constantly think about it is really important. And I want to say, like, just as important, but to most people, that's the fun part. When I can sit there and talk about envision, like, it's still stressful when I envision stuff. Like, it's not always like, well, this is what I'm looking for. I think about, like, well, shit, this is going to happen too, and so on and so forth, but I'm going to be ready for it. Or in my head, I tell myself, like, I'm going to be ready for it. But you need both. You need to be able to have this vision, because at what point is it like, well, I don't know what I'm looking for, and you're just stagnant. So I think that vision does help you in terms of growth. But again, you're right. You have to put in the work for it. Other than that, it's just a form of, well, this is my goal. This is my dream. How many people sit there and say, that's my dream car, and have never driven it? But in reality, it's like, people drive it. So that means it's possible.
That's why they make it.
Yeah.
I'm spiritual, right? I'm Christian by faith.
Mm.
But when I've prayed that God may allow me to see the vision.
Uh-huh.
I've prayed and spoke to God, and I've asked, allow me to see the vision, so when the opportunity arises, I know how to act.
Yeah.
And I think that's a very important aspect of it,
Mm-hmm.
But through faith is backed by your actions as well. God or whoever you believe in wants to see you work on these goals.
Yes.
Faith wants you to abide by your rules pretty much, and see how committed you really are to these things, because opportunities do arise, and the vision comes. But what are you going to do with it when once it's in your head? It's one of those things where there's moments where I prayed to be on certain stages in the world, and in the moment I almost fumbled it.
Yeah.
Like, I got to that moment, I'm like, man, it hit me like a rock, like, damn, I'm here. This is the moment I prayed for.
Yeah.
And I had one shot. Like, shooters, any photographer, videographer would know that you have one shot, one opportunity to get that shot.
Yeah.
And I think that's the beautiful part about photography and videography, is that you prepare so much with these small gigs that when you get allowed that one opportunity, you have literally seconds to adjust your settings and start shooting. And I think that's the beautiful thing. That's why I think I'm so attracted to the idea of creating, because of those moments. And when we pray for these moments, when we pray for these things, it's like, you need to be ready. God,
this is my thing, right?
Mm-hmm.
I think that term ready is, you'll never feel ready. Like, that's how I feel. I feel like people say this all the time, especially with, like, kids, like parenthood, right? They'll say, well, you'll never be ready. You'll have one, then you'll realize what it takes, right? And it's the same thing of, like, well, I'm going to train this, whatever material that we give, and I'm going to be ready, then I'm going to handle it. And then they come to realize, well, they're still not ready. And you get that through action. You get it through putting in that work and so on, right? But yeah, I feel like if you waited till you're ready, nobody would get nothing done.
Absolutely.
Right? And I think, again, when you talk about scramming for your settings, and you told me the story where it's like, well, I had like a couple seconds to just adjust everything. You're going to tell me you were ready? That was the definition of you not ready. You ready would have been like, I have every setting perfectly set up, point, shoot. But it was, okay, well, crap, I got 10 seconds. How do I, and again, if you put me to it, I would have fumbled it. You give me like, aperture? What is that? But
yeah,
that's what it is. It's like the story you're telling is like what I believe is there's going to come an opportunity that's going to come. Whether you're ready or not, take it. Right? And so that picture may not be perfect because you could have changed some
degree of
aperture.
setting.
I only know aperture, right?
Yeah.
But it's like you could have changed something to make it more ideal. But you adjusted on the fly and you got a great shot out of it. So by definition, you scrambling for all that, you weren't ready. And it's the same thing. I think that's how opportunity presents itself. There's going to be a door that opens, just like that window you saw. And it's, I'm going to make this happen, or I'm going to take this, make this decision to go for it and adjust. Right? But people sit there and say, I don't have the financial resources, or I don't have this. And you hear all these stories. Like, I'm an example. We had no money, zero money. How did we create something? And again, Google our shit. Like, this is something where I used to feel like, well, who the hell am I? I'm a normal person. I am. And I used to think, well, who's going to listen? But Google our shit. Like I am proud of what we've done with nothing. And it wasn't because I wasn't like, oh, we have the financial resources and now we're ready to move. It was like, okay, well, here's an opportunity. Let's try to do something. Just like your story of, well, here's a shot. I don't know how long it is, so let's
act.
Yeah, and that's it. And I think the more people got adjusted to that or bought into the idea of, well, you're never fucking ready. Okay, you're never going to feel ready. It's like if I plan to have a kid and the kid comes, I'm like, holy crap, I wasn't prepared. Right? But it's adjusting on the fly. It was your parents' first time parenting you. They didn't have anyone before you. They didn't have they could have read books and so on and so forth, but it's the same thing. Like I could read books about war. If I go, shit, now here's the new lesson, right? And that's things we make fun of in the Marine Corps. Well, you have this new lieutenant who's like, I read this and whatever. And then you have like my old bosses who are combat vets that are like, that's not how it works, sir. Well, I read it. Well, it's not how it works. Right?
And that's usually life too, though.
Yeah. And so that doesn't mean don't prepare. I'm not trying to say, when I say you're never ready, doesn't mean, fuck it, I'll handle it as it comes. It's preparing and then just taking that action, even if you don't feel like you're quote unquote ready. And then you'll see what I guess, you'll see what you're capable of. And then your shot is the that idea that came to life, or that decision, or that
manifestation coming forward. Yeah. You got to take the leap. Yeah. You got to take that dive into the deep end and figure it out. One time I was a kid, and I think that's a good lesson. I had older cousins who they knew what was at the end of this cliff, right? And they were like, hey, take a jump, take a jump, take a jump. It's good. The water's nice, da-da-da. Have you guys done it? And they were like, yeah. All right, I'm young. Let's do it. Jumped in, it was probably like 5-degree water. I jump in and I couldn't breathe. Instantly, my body went into shock. Complete shock. Either I'm drowning or I'm floating up. Yeah. And I think that's life. Mm-hmm. You're never going to be quite ready. Yeah. You're never going to be fully prepared. It's just about doing the most you can with the time you have.
With what you have. Yeah.
Because people always say, if I had this tool, I would do this better. Yeah. Well, you might not have that tool. Mm-hmm. So do with what you got as best as you can.
And that's something that you should take pride in. And so if you don't know, shout out Marine Corps. But if anybody knows, and if you do your research, you'll come to understand, like, we get made fun of because we get Army hand-me-downs. Like, they have the newer equipment while we're using crap from the 1980s, like the 1800s, right? Like, there's an ongoing joke in the military about how the Marine Corps has very little, but we're capable of accomplishing more with little, right? And so that's something that I used to I take pride in. Well, you have better shit than me, but I'm gonna do better than you with what I have, right? And again, like I learned that early on in my time as a young adult when I was 19, 20, at that time where I was like, okay, well, they would always tell me, you're going to do more with less. You're going to do more with less. And at that time I was like, talking shit like, fuck the Army or whatever it is that I said. And that was a lesson in itself. You're going to do more with less. You can't make the excuse as to why we didn't accomplish this mission because we didn't have the proper equipment. Like, I'll tell you some stories offline, and I think I've told you some of the funnier ones, but like there are things that we did to just like makeshift random crap, and it worked, right? And if I had the mentality of, well, I'm not ready because I don't have these tools yet, nothing would get done, which is the same reason why I tell you, like, get out of that mindset. Fuck being ready. Prepare. That does, again, I'm gonna reiterate, dude, that doesn't mean don't like gaff off your life. Don't gamble. Well, shit, if he says you're never gonna be ready, well, let's just not prepare at all and see what happens. No, you're trying your best to prepare for it. And then when the time comes, you'll realize, well, shit, I still gotta adjust on the fly. I gotta fix my settings, aperture, whatever, and then make something out of it.
And that's a beautiful lesson in itself.
Yeah.
That mindset, bro, the power of visualization, being that conscious thinker on a daily basis. All those key points we talked about today are crucial to overcoming adversity, and all of that builds creativity because, like you said, we didn't have the tools, but we made something work. What did that take? Your creativity. The lack of resources.
Yeah. You could get creative. You could, like, you'll come to realize how much you're capable of. And you have to think about it. Like, how the hell, like, if you think about, okay, fishing, who decided to, what the hell, like, how did that come out? You get me? Like, there's just so much shit that comes into, well, I did more with less. And then what ends up happening is you start, you develop, and it gets better and better. And now we have, like, for instance, cars. If you were to ask me, every time I thought about a car in its simplest form, it was a body with wheels. I didn't think about gears or suspension or any of that. I just thought, well, let's get it to roll. And I'm assuming the first person designed something, which is why you'll see different types of different engines, whether with turbos or not, or whatever it is. And it's just, hey, we acted on it, we grew, we made progress, and I think that's what you're aiming for.
The endless pursuit of progress.
Yeah, that's success. I think it's understanding that there is an endless pursuit of it. There is never going to be well, I did it, and it's gone. And every like. Even like who I get mentored by, or the high successful people that I see operate, it's always, well, next, I'm trying this now. We're gonna progress here now. There's never been a point of like, hey, I'm content with where I'm at.
And one of your mentors one time said too, the most successful people are always constantly restructuring their goals.
Yeah.
Through time.
Yeah.
Because at certain points you just start being so good at winning that these goals just start developing. Let's say you get this car that you always dreamt of. All right, what's next now though? You got this house.
Yeah.
But what's next?
That's how I felt with just the company itself. In the very beginning, the company didn't form as a way to like, okay, we're going to provide people with a way to make money. I didn't think about employing people. At the time, all I could think about was, how do I make money, dude? I'm broke as hell, right? And then my goal changed from, well, I made money, and then now it's let's help as many people as we can. And that's not always just the people here, but like, one of our core values is to give back, and we always do. We had conversations even before all the fires of let's give back, let's do this, let's set this up. And it's ongoing, and I come to realize we had this talk about the you I don't know if you went to the same church as me yesterday, but they talked about the idolization of money, right? And then you hear everybody, like I hear people next to me like, money's something you shouldn't idolize, it's evil, whatever, right? And I'm thinking like, okay. I don't have that relationship with money. I don't think money's evil, right? But the pastor said it's not always the case though, because it's what your relationship is like with money. If you think that's what's the most important, then yes, no good. But it's what you can do with it that'll be the difference between you being used as a vessel or not. And I was like, what the hell? I stayed quiet because I was like, am I a bad person? Like briefly, I was like, what the hell? Because I to some extent, like I do chase it, but I don't chase it like that's what I want and that's what's the most important to me. But I've come to realize like, what if I have more, I can give so much more, right? And so it's little things like even you being here or Maria being here or anyone being here. There was a point in time where I couldn't afford any of it. But now it's like, well, if I can help and if we can create this like agreement of, well, this is what's going to help and I can provide something, like, why not? Why not give back because we can? Even if we can't, why not?
And that's the perfect tool. I mean, the pastor talked about how when he had nothing, he gave more.
Yeah.
You know,
yeah.
And it's always filling the cup up, filling the cup up, filling these things up. And yeah, definitely you'll be blessed for it too, If the motive, yes, is just money, and obviously if you don't want to grow those around you as well, then I think that's when it's for sure, you should really contemplate what you're trying to do. But by being a better person doesn't mean, by being a bad person doesn't mean I'm just money hungry. Yeah, money hungry, but I'm trying to help all these people as well.
Yeah.
And
that's what it comes down to. At least for me, it's like, well, if I have all this and I can do what I want with my immediate family for myself, and I can give everyone, like, what? Sign me up. Give me more of it. And I don't know. I felt like that for a brief second. And then I looked at my girl after and I was like, do you think I have a bad relationship with money? She's like, no, you help so many people. And I was like, my dog.
And no, it's true. Yeah. Like, the first thing I did noticing you was, how many people are we going to help? Yeah. Every Monday morning, it's like, how can we help these guys out?
Yeah. It's
not even about yourself anymore at this point. I feel like we talk about this all the time, but great leaders lift those around you.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think what I've come to realize is the more I help others, the more it helps me. If I can help you, it'll help me. And so let's just continue that.
And this wasn't part of your initial envisioning and your initial manifestations of what this company could have been,
And it wasn't. That's why the conversation came about, because it was like in the very beginning, that's not what my goals restructured. It changed. I changed, the goals changed. There's adjustments made and so on. And that's what it is. Right.
But that's life, huh?
Yeah, that is. And I think it's not so black and white, right? Like the whole idea of like, well, this is the right way, wrong way, well, this is the way you need to. But yeah, it's crazy when I look back of like how different I was. Like, I used to be that guy who only wanted to hear songs about like success and money. Like all I cared about at that point was like, how do I grow? How do I do this? I want the nice things too, right? And I tell this story, and I think in part I was like that because I was like a dog with its tail between its legs, with where I used to live, and how I lived, and just like, if you saw the way that I operated, I was a piece of shit. Honestly, like, I would give myself a pat on the back because I could go to the gym every day, I had a good physique, and I was like, yeah, like, I'm disciplined. But I was a lazy piece of shit. I was living in a piece of shit. And like my actions showed exactly who I was. You know, you get me? And I say dog with its tail between its legs because I was so, like, as a man, like, you have some level of ego, whether you want to admit it or not. There's some level, like, you don't want to look like a fool in front of your lady. You don't want to look like a fool in front of your family or whatever the case. There's some level of ego, right? And that's how I was, where I had nothing to show for, nothing. And so, you know, that's why I say that, because I'm like, okay, well, what can I do? And so when I was put in this position to, you know, in this industry to push through, it was like, well, I want the nice shit. That's what I want. 'Cause now I want to, you know, I want to enjoy my lifestyle. And I used to think, like, this is the time where, you know, now I'm going to tell you I'm not this piece of shit that I was. But again, like, it's, that I think that's why my initial goals, just like a lot of people who, and I don't want to say piece of shit, I'm saying that to myself. Just, if you're there, that doesn't mean you are. But again, like, reflect. Maybe you are. I don't know. But that's when I was like, well, I want things to show for. And especially when you're young, you're like, well, success means having all the nice crap. That's not what it, right? Success is such a vague term where success is different to everybody. But at that point, it was like, okay, well, this is what I want. So that's what I was driven by. I want the nice watch. I want the nice this. This is what I want. And then as I started to, I guess, check little things off the box, I realized it wasn't fulfilling. It's like, hey, it's a nice car, but I'm over it now. It's not what I thought it was. I got the nice whatever it was, and I was like, this is it? This is it? And I felt the most sense of fulfillment and, like, true, I feel like, happiness when I was able to help people, like, give like, okay, well, let me put this back for you. Don't worry, I got it for you. No, I'm not even talking about money. Like, I got it for you. Or even if it's like, hey, let me help you with this, or let me do this. That's when I was like, hey, this feels nice. It feels nicer than buying the nice car. And don't get me wrong, I love it. It feels good, but it's short-lived. You get me?
Your goals, your things change, you know?
Change, yeah.
Changes. It's a beautiful thing, bro.
Yeah.
It's a beautiful thing because it could propel us forward as well.
And
you know?
It has, yeah.
Thankful for you, bro.
Sure, likewise.
Constantly change, brother.
Yes, sir.
All right, then. To the next one.
Next one, let's get it.
Appreciate you.